Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I did not come here to tickle ears. I came here to speak truth. And the truth is this: laziness is killing us, not with a gun, not with a knife, but with delay, distraction, and denial. It doesn't knock down the door with a roar. It creeps in like a whisper, telling you you can do it tomorrow. You're tired. You've done enough. But listen to me, tomorrow is not promised. You were not made to survive. You were made to survive. You were not created to crawl through life. You were born to run the race with fire in your bones. There is a seed of greatness in you. But seeds don't grow in sloth. They grow in discipline and action and sacrifice. Some of you are waiting for a sign. Let me be plain. This is your sign. You've got breath in your lungs, then you've got a purpose on this earth. But purpose without movement is potential rotting in the sun. My friend, kill your laziness before it kills your calling. Strike it down with the sword of discipline. Drag it to the altar and leave it there. Because until you do, you'll never taste the fullness of who you were meant to be. Stop hitting snooze on your destiny. Stop letting comfort become your coffin. You don't need more time. You need more fire. So rise up, shake off that sluggish spirit, and say with me today, no more excuses. No more delays, no more laziness, because when you kill laziness, you awaken purpose, you unlock power, you unleash destiny. Now go, move, act, live, and never look back. Laziness is the silent killer of purpose because it does not come with noise or drama or flashing signs of destruction, but creeps in like a shadow during twilight, slipping into your bones and convincing you that rest is always deserved, even when no work has been done. And soon what was meant to be one moment of pause becomes a pattern of delay, and what was once a spark of vision becomes a dim flicker, barely burning beneath the weight of excuses and idle hands. It tells you there is always tomorrow, always next week, always a better time to begin, and so you listen to that gentle voice of comfort dressed up like peace, but it is not peace. It is paralysis of potential. The stillness that suffocates progress while time marches on without mercy, and your calling sits unattended like a gift unopened on a dusty shelf. You feel it in your gut that you were made for more, built for greater, shaped by the hands of purpose itself. But that purpose grows weaker with each unfulfilled day. Each moment you choose distraction over discipline. Each time you surrender your hunger to a nap, a scroll, a sigh that says, not today, and slowly, bit by bit, the edges of your identity begin to... You were not created to waste breath, not designed to simply exist and float through the hours with empty plans and good intentions, but to build, to sweat, to strive, to endure the pressure of process and come out refined. And every time you turn from that call, every time you sit back when you should stand up, every time you settle for enough when more was demanded, something inside you begins to die. Because laziness never demands, never storms in like a thief. It waits, it whispers, it woos you into sleepwalking through your destiny until you wake up one day wondering how the fire faded, how the passion turned to apathy, how the doors of opportunity closed while you were still rehearsing the reasons why you weren't ready. The world won't wait for you to be motivated, and purpose won't unfold for the passive. And while you wait for the right mood, the right moment, the right miracle, others who chose discipline over comfort are running with the dream you laid down, building what you never started, walking through doors you refused to knock on because laziness told you to sit still and wait for something easier. And I tell you this with urgency, not judgment, not condemnation, but with the shaking voice of truth. Kill your laziness before it kills what you were born to do. Drag it in the light, confront it with fire, tear down its lies and chains, and daily choose effort over ease. Because every moment you let it live, it is killing something sacred inside you that the world desperately needs. Yes, even tired, even unsure, even afraid. And move, because the graveyard of dreams is filled not with the wicked or the weak, but with those who let comfort replace commitment, who let tomorrow swallow today, who had the tools but never used them, the calling but never answered the purpose, but let laziness quietly, silently, fatally bury it alive. Discipline is the sword that slays laziness, because without it you are weaponless in a battlefield where the enemy never sleeps, never gives up ground willingly. And this enemy called laziness doesn't arrive with an army, but with a whisper, a comfort, a suggestion to delay just a little longer, to breathe without building, to rest without reason. And unless you draw the blade of discipline each morning with trembling hands and holy resolve, it will conquer you softly until you're too numb to notice what you've lost. You do not wake up with discipline. It is forged in the fire of repetition, in the cold mornings when you don't feel like moving, in the quiet hours when no one applauds you. In the choices no one sees but heaven records. And every time you choose to act when it would be easier to sleep. Every time you push forward without applause, every time you show up with shaking bones and stubborn faith, you are sharpening that sword, tempering it in the furnace of sacrifice, preparing to strike down every idle voice that dares to stand between you and the future you were created to build. Laziness is cunning. It wears the face of peace. It says you deserve this, and it feeds you comfort until your fire goes cold. But discipline doesn't lie. Discipline doesn't flatter. Discipline wounds your pride and breaks your habits and cuts away the fat of excuses until only strength remains. And when you wield it without hesitation, it slices through the chains that have held you back, and you realize that the fight was never about your talent or your resources, but about your willingness to wake up and war against what wants to waste. The sword of discipline is not swung once, it must be raised daily, even when your hands are tired, even when your heart is heavy, even when your mind is foggy with doubt, because the moment you lay it down, laziness creeps back in like smoke under the door, filling the room with delay and indecision and regret dressed up as relaxation. And the work you avoided becomes the weight you carry, and the mountain you refuse to climb becomes the wall you cannot see beyond. There is no shortcut to purpose, no escalator to greatness, no magic trick to replace the grind of growth. And while others may wait for motivation or inspiration or a feeling to arrive like a sunrise, you must pick up that sword of discipline, even in the dark, even in the silence, even when your body screams and your mind protests, because it is only by moving through the pain that you reach the power, only by slaying comfort that you find the crown of calling. And discipline doesn't ask for applause, it doesn't crave attention, it doesn't need the spotlight to survive because it is fueled by something deeper than ego, something stronger than hype. It is driven by vision, sustained by commitment, anchored in purpose, and when away, fall asleep. Fall apart, discipline keeps you standing, keeps you steady, keeps you ready to strike again, to wake again, to rise again, because you know that laziness will always return, and so must your sword. The war against laziness is not won in one day, not with one speech, not through one burst of energy. It is a lifelong battle, a sacred resistance, a daily declaration that you will not be ruled by comfort, that you will not bow to passivity, that you will not be another dreamer dying in the desert of delay because you have chosen to live like a warrior, to fight for your future, to bleed now so you do not break later, to discipline yourself now so you do not have to regret. So stand up, lift your sword, and do not wait for a better moment, a perfect feeling, a clearer sign, because discipline is not about what you feel. It is about what you choose today to strike laziness where it lives, to cut it down with consistent action, to silence it with structured effort. Then tomorrow you will wake up not just stronger, but freer. It's the one who holds the sword of discipline, holds the keys to every locked door in their destiny. God gave you breath, not to waste it, not to let it drift out of your lungs in sighs of delay or groans of procrastination, but to fill it with passion, to pour it into purpose, the sails of your life, the wind that drives the sails of your life towards something greater than yourself, something eternal. Something bold, because this breath you carry is not yours to squander, but a sacred deposit from heaven itself. A reminder every morning that you're still alive because there is still something left for you. You did not wake up by accident. You did not open your eyes this morning because the universe rolled a lucky number. You woke up because God still has a plan, because there is still a field to till, still a mountain to climb, still a soul to reach, still a gift inside you that has not been given. And with every inhale, you're being entrusted again with holy fuel. And with every exhale, you're either building something that matters or wasting the very breath that could have changed the world around you. You are not just breathing to survive, not here to exist in a cycle of sleep and screen and silence, because the God who breathed life in the dust expects more than idleness from his image bearers, expects movement, expects growth, expects you to rise with the weight of purpose on your back and the fire of calling in your bones. And though your breath may be quiet, its purpose is thunder. And every second you waste it, something inside you starts to forget that you were formed to work, to worship through action. He didn't give you breath to scroll endlessly through someone else's life, to compare yourself into paralysis, to binge on comfort while your calling collects dust. That's this gift you have, the oxygen in your lungs, the rhythm in your chest. is not a trophy, but a tool. Not a right, but a responsibility, and you were never meant to hold it without using it, to carry it without contributing, because the clock is ticking, and you don't know how many more breaths remain before the last one whispers through your lips, and it is. So if God gave you breath, then work with it. Speak life with it. Move your feet, stretch your hands, shake the dust off your dreams, and get back in the ring, because there is no such thing as meaningless breath. Not when it comes from the Maker, not when it carries divine intent. Not when you are surrounded by a broken world that desperately needs someone to stop surviving and start showing what holy purpose looks like. And no, the work won't always be glamorous, won't always be noticed, won't always be clapped for or captured on a camera, but it will be worth it, because God did not give you breath to make noise. He gave you breath to make a difference, to break chains, to light torches, to walk paths that others are too tired to walk, and with every choice to use that breath for discipline instead of delay, for faith instead of fear, for building instead of bearing. You are honoring the one who gave it to you in the first place. You don't need to be the loudest, the fastest, the most talented, but you need to move. You need to show God that what he gave you has not been wasted, that you recognize the miracle of every inhale and the mission of every exhale, that you will not spend this life waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel perfect, but will step into the trenches of obedience with shaky hands and a steady will, knowing that he did not give you this breath to coast through comfort, but to confront the world with love, work, grit, and fire. So breathe, yes, but breathe with intention, breathe with urgency, breathe knowing that this air is borrowed and must be spent wisely. Because when your last breath comes, and it will come, you will want to look back and know that you worked with it, that you fought with it, that you gave with it, and that you lived not as one who wasted God's gift, but as one who honored him with every breath until the very last. Excuses are the anthem of the lazy because they are sung so sweetly, with voices dipped in logic and lips dressed in justification, sounding like reason, but born out of fear, born out of delay, born out of the quiet decision to stay still when movement is required, to sit down when purpose calls you to rise, and though they may comfort you in the moment, these excuses pile like bricks around your future until the only thing you're building is a wall between who you are and who you were meant to be. Every time you say, I don't have time, when you've spent hours scrolling through other people's effort, or I'm too tired, when the tiredness comes from feeding distractions instead of pursuing destiny, or I'll start tomorrow. Knowing tomorrow is just the excuse you gave yesterday. What you're really saying is, I'd rather stay the same. And those words repeated over and over become the anthem of a life that once had potential but never had progress. You see, laziness doesn't always look like doing nothing. It often disguises itself in busy work, in planning without execution, in dreaming without discipline, in goals written in journals that never see the sweat of your hands or the fight of your... And all the while excuses play like background music, soothing your conscience while you're calling rusts in the shadows of a night. Excuses sound wise, they sound protective, they even sound mature, like I'm just waiting on the right season, or I'm working on myself first, or I don't want to rush. But what they really are is permission to do nothing, permission to stay safe, permission to keep the sword of discipline sheathed while the enemy of laziness gains ground, because you've decided that sounding responsible is better than being responsible. And the danger is this: if you sing that anthem long enough, it becomes your identity, it becomes your reflex, it becomes the first thing your mouth says when your heart tries to rise, and even when God opens doors, you'll be too slow to walk through. Too buried in a what-ifs and an I can'ts and not today's to seize what was already placed in your hands, because the anthem you've sung for years has turned your ears deaf to the sound of opportunity knocking. Excuses give you a temporary shield from pressure, but they rob you of progress. They make you feel clever when you should feel convicted. They silence the voice of purpose with a chorus of a later. And though the world may nod and accept your reasoning, your soul knows the truth. Your spirit knows the difference between rest and resistance, between wisdom and avoidance, between pause and paralysis. So if you're tired of circling the same mountain, tired of watching others build while you only talk, tired of standing on the sidelines of your own calling, then you've got to stop singing the anthem of the lazy and start roaring the anthem of the discipline, the anthem of the discipline, the anthem of the hungry, the anthem of the warrior who says, even if I fail, I won't stay still, because no more excuse will ever birth the life you were born to live. And today, yes, today you choose, you decide if your voice will echo the lazy man's lullaby or the champion's charge, if you will keep dressing your comfort in clever words or undress the lie and face the truth. Because excuses may sound pretty, but they build nothing, change nothing. Nothing is nothing, and until you silence that anthem, you will never hear the sound of destiny singing. Laziness disguises itself as rest without reward, a counterfeit calm that feels like peace but carries the poison of passivity, whispering to your weary mind that you have earned a break when no battle has been fought, that you deserve comfort when no cost has been paid. And so you recline in false relief, not realizing that this kind of rest isn't restoration. It's silent decay dressed in softness, and while your body may be still, your purpose begins to bleed out quietly beneath the surface. It feels good at first, doesn't it? Pulling the blanket over your calling, pushing the alarm clock into silence, telling yourself just a little longer, as if time will wait, as if opportunity will sit at your bedside with folded hands, as if your future will pause out of pity. But what you call rest is really resistance. What you label self-care is sometimes self-sabotage. And before you know it, the moments meant for building have been traded for busyness without movement, tiredness without reason, comfort without consequence. True rest comes after labor, comes after you've stretched, trained, fought, created, pushed, given, and then finally paused. But laziness flips the script, puts rest before effort, makes relaxation the starting line instead of finish, and this backwards rhythm may feel good to your flesh, but it will bankrupt your future, because rest without reward is just spiritual sleepwalking, just idle time that never returns, just a pretty prison where dreams are put to death. And while the world may not see the damage, while your social media may still sparkle and your smile may still shine, deep down you know the difference. You know when your rest is righteous and when it's rotting you, when your pause is productive and when it's an escape, when your Sabbath is sacred and when it's a smokescreen for fear avoidance and the quiet resignation that maybe you're not willing to pay the price that purpose demands. Because laziness is clever, it doesn't show up as rebellion or loud refusal, it shows up as I need a break. I've been stressed, I'll do it later, and suddenly the hours vanish, the days disappear, the fire dims, and you're left wondering where the energy went, where the time went, where the passion went, when the truth is it all leaked out through the cracks of comfort that you called rest, but God never called you to. You weren't made for full stillness. You weren't designed to dwell in pools, because every breath you've been given was meant for movement, for building, for stretching, and yes, for rest. But rest with reward, rest that comes after obedience, rest that follows effort, not rest that replaces it. Not the kind that numbs the pain of purpose neglected, not the kind that fills your hands with nothing and your heart with regret. And if you keep confusing laziness with rest, you'll live in a cycle where nothing grows, nothing moves, nothing shifts, where your dreams die quietly under soft sheets and your calling is drowned out by comfort's lullaby. And you'll look around one day at the life you never lived and realize that the greatest thief was not time, not failure, not even fear, but the lie that told you it was okay to stop before you started, to rest when you hadn't run. So today you must ask, is this rest or is it retreat? Is this pause or is it paralysis? Is this recovery or is it avoidance? Because your future deserves the kind of rest that follows obedience, not laziness, wearing a mask, not the kind that feels good but gives you nothing. And if you want real rest, the kind that fills, heals, and strengthens, then you must first do the work, fight the fight, finish the task, and then rest with peace, with pride, and with the reward only earned by those who refuse to be fooled by the softness of sloth. To kill laziness is to resurrect your destiny, because as long as laziness is alive, destiny remains buried beneath delay and doubt and comfort and excuses and empty habits dressed up as routines. And though the grave of your purpose may not look like dirt, it's made of soft beds and glowing screens and endless scrolls and muted alarms and postponed plans and quiet compromises that seem small in the moment but stacked together form the tomb where you're calling lies cold and untouched, waiting for the day you finally get tired of wasting the fire in your bones. Destiny does not die by tragedy. It dies by toleration. It dies when you let laziness sit in your soul like a guest, feed it with justification, clothe it with clever words, call it a waiting, call it a timing, call it a balance. But the truth is, destiny doesn't bloom in a field of ease. It grows where there is sweat, where there is struggle, where there is structure. And until you confront the laziness that's killing your momentum, you'll keep wondering why the doors won't open when your hands were never reaching for the hand. There is no resurrection without a death, and if you want your destiny to rise, then laziness must fall, publicly, violently, daily, because it will not leave quietly. It must be starved. It must be fought. It must be buried under the weight of discipline and truth and action and consistency. And every time you say no to that voice that tells you to wait, to slow down, To settle, you are choosing to pull your purpose out of the grave one decision at a time. You cannot serve both comfort and calling, cannot serve both effort and escape, cannot bow to both your dream and your delay. And there will come a day, no, there must come a day, when you say enough is enough. When you stop writing eulogies for plans that never took breath and start writing resurrection scripts with your action, with your obedience, with your time, with your yes. Because laziness has sung the lullaby long enough, and it's time to wake up and shake off the dust and speak to the dry bones of your destiny alive again. You were never made to live halfway, to sit in potential like a boat that never hits water, to carry talent with no testimony, to be haunted by what you could have done had you just moved, just tried, just finished what you started. Because God didn't give you this life so you could survive an autopilot, repeating days like a loop, growing older but not deeper, breathing but not building, awake but not alive. Until you make war on laziness, you will never walk in the fullness of what you were created to carry. The battle is not always loud, not always seen. Sometimes it's a whisper. Sometimes it's a choice between 10 more minutes or 10 more reps, between the couch or the call, between staying in bed or showing up messy but willing. And that's the place where destiny either dies again or rises again. And you think you need a breakthrough, but maybe you just need to move. Maybe you just need to stop waiting for the feeling and start walking by faith. Because the path to your future is not paved with feelings, it's paved with footsteps. And when you start slaying laziness, when you get serious, when you get sick of the cycle, when you start choosing effort over excuse, you'll feel your destiny breathe again. You'll hear it whisper in the silence, feel it rise in your chest, sense that fire. Not because the road got easier, but because you finally started walking it, finally started choosing it, finally said, I will not bury what heaven put inside me just because I was afraid to get tired. So yes, to kill laziness is to resurrect your destiny, not with magic, not with hype, but with choices, with action, with one more step, one more yes, one more refusal to let comfort keep. You will see that what you thought was dead was only waiting for you to rise, waiting for you to fight, waiting for you to kill the lie that says you can do it later, and realize that destiny was never gone. It was just buried under the weight of what you refused to face.